Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, starring David Paetkow, forgive me if I said that wrong, Brooke Nevin, Don Shanks, Tori DeVito, Ben Easter, Casey Clyde, Seth Packard, and Michael Flynn, directed by Sylvian White. Now, because I am the newbie of this series, let's just get straight into this movie. We open on the 4th of July in Colorado as we meet the characters Amber Williams, played by Brooke Nevin, Colby Patterson, played by, oh my god, I'm going to have to say his name wrong again, David Paetkow, forgive me if I said that wrong, Zoe, played by Tori DeVito, Lance, played by Ben Easter, and Roger, played by Seth Packard, as they learn about the killer, the fisherman, while on the Ferris wheel in a game at the carnival and win a stuffed monkey as one of their friends, PJ, arrives. And the fisherman attacks the kids at the carnival, and I thought, shit, we're getting to the kills right away, and it was just a fucking prank. And that's not a prank anyone should pull off in general, while PJ is killed because of their stupid prank, as that sounds like a bad idea, while the acting in this is horrendous. I absolutely hate these fucking characters. Amber and the friends talk about how it was an accident and make an agreement to never bring it up to nobody. And it dies with them as we move on to 1 year later on July 1st, where Amber is back in Colorado for the summer and she gets to a party seeing Lance as well as Colby, who's been in town and working at the pool for the past, while in and the writing in this as the plot is awful, and this feels like the previous two movies as a copycat. Amber gets encountered by Deputy Hafner with his police doggy, and Amber gets home and is depressed, and I don't give a shit about her depression, as she gets a note from her parents about no parties, and she wakes up in the middle of the night, and the alarm scares the fuck out of her, and gets a text message saying, "I know what you did last summer," and Amber goes up to Zoe and she practices with her band until Zoe sees Amber, as she knows her she shows her the message and wonders who else knows but Amber and her friends. And Amber asks Zoe if she can crash at her place for the night. And we move on to July 2nd, and Amber and Zoe look for Roger at his summer job and encounter them. And they talk about Amber's message, and the cinematography in this is terrible right out the fucking bat. And the editing is painfully choppy. Amber and Zoe think about what the fuck happened to them and they're approached by Sheriff Davis and check up on the two girls, as this movie is super thin. And Zoe comes to the pool to talk with Colby as he acts like a prick about it, and the ground says, "I know what you did," and he just ignores it, as this motherfucker is an asshole to begin with. We move on to Amber going on a bike ride, and 35 minutes into it, I'm starting to check out of this movie, as it's the same goddamn story as the first two movies. While Amber has a problem with her bicycle and goes inside a place as she gets to the other side of the town, and she sees the fisherman, and this movie is really fucking thin, as this is super laughable, and I couldn't help but laugh my ass off during the scares and kills, as this movie isn't scary, it's more funny to me. Roger has some issues of his own and drinks a shit ton and cuts his arm as he hears something and sees what it is, and I'm like, dude, man, just don't look for the fisherman. And he finds his coat and with his hook, and the fisherman appears to kill Roger, and he's successful as the fisherman cuts his neck open, as Amber, Zoe, and Colby go to his workplace, and Colby has a baseball bat, and they see he's dead and gets the fish hook he had for the prank last summer, and they're led to believe he killed himself and gets questioned by Deputy Hafner. And I get the impression he's in love with Amber, which was so telegraphed, while they get back to Amber's place as it was broken into, and it's a mess. Like, this movie is completely a motherfucking mess. They go to Lance while working on the wood on July 3rd and says something about Sheriff Davis asking questions about Roger's death, and Sheriff Davis is Lance's uncle. And they go to a diner as Sheriff Davis happens to be there. Nighttime comes rather too quickly, as this is a 90-minute movie, and the previous movies were like around 100 minutes long. Maybe a little over that, but while Sheriff Davis gets a note from Colby talking about last summer as Zoe hears something and is encountered by the fisherman and gets killed as it was just a fucking dream. And it annoys me in this movie, as this movie is annoying as hell, and the score in this is terrible. As Lance heard what they did last summer, as it's written on his bike, while Colby swims for the night, and the fisherman gets Colby in the foot while swimming, but it doesn't kill him. And he goes to Amber, Zoe, and Lance, and he says his uncle didn't do it, and talk about how they're wrong about the sheriff in town. And this acting is, again, so fucking bad. They get to a house where Deputy Hafner lives in while having some friends over, and Sheriff Davis happens to be there, and they decide to leave town the next day, and we get to July 4th, and they prepare to leave as Colby brings the hook to get rid of it once and for all. And Zoe decides to not leave that day, as she's playing on the 4th of July show, and will be secured by security, as Amber shows Lance some newspaper clips from last year, and he says he'll be there as they smooch up a storm. And this is by far one of the worst movies I've seen since the Child's Play remake in 2019. As Amber and Lance get to the concert where Zoe is playing with Colby, and they play their songs, and they're not great in my opinion, while Colby gets a drink from the bar while Sheriff Davis believes something is up with Lance, and Amber, as he keeps an eye on them, and Zoe puts on her makeup, and Amber and Lance get to Zoe's dressing room as she gets an agent's info, and they're encountered and attacked by the fisherman, and this feels so damn cheap for a straight-to-video sequel. So, what do you expect? Zoe is killed by the fisherman, and I'm like, oh god, her death was painfully bad. Because I wanted to see her succeed in this music business. Not that this movie's about it, and I thought she was going to live, but nope. Not really, as Amber makes a noise and Sheriff Davis comes in and gets killed while Colby has the time of his life until he is encountered by the fisherman and fights him off until he gets killed and thrown in the trash, which serves him right because he definitely deserves it because he's a douchebag to begin with. And Deputy Hafner knows what they did to Roger, telling him, and he takes Amber and Lance in his car to find Zoe's dead body. And they're approached by the fisherman, who ends up killing Deputy Hafner. And Amber and Lance drives his police car and runs him over. And he's revealed as a monster. Like it looked like Jeepers Creepers. That monster, anyways. But moving on. Of some kind, which doesn't seem effective. Amber and Lance get to a hidden spot in a garage. And the fisherman stabs Lance and tries to kill both of them, but misses big time, and he gets to them and takes a stab at Lance, as Amber turns on a machine and throws her out of the moving machine with knives, as Amber gets the hook and stabs the bastard in the back of his head and kills the motherfucker by the machine, and they get hospitalized. And we move on to another year later as Amber drives to California and suddenly gets a flat tire in the middle of the desert and gets killed by the fisherman, and this climax was just the worst. Whoops. But how worse? Let's find out in a rating. I'll give this movie a 1.0 out of 10. This is by far the worst in the series, as I hate these fucking characters, and the acting by the actors in this was horrendous, and the writing as well as this plot is so awful in so many levels, as it's like the previous two movies, like a copycat. And the cinematography is terrible in this right out the fucking bat, and the editing is painfully choppy. The movie is super thin, as I checked out of this movie after 35 minutes into it, as it's the same goddamn story as the previous two movies, as this version is laughable. And I couldn't help but laugh my ass off during the scares and kills, as this movie isn't scary, it's funny to me. And it's a mess of a motherfucking movie, as it annoyed me, and the score in this movie is terrible. This is one of the worst movies I've seen in the series ever, with the Child's Play remake back in 2019 when I reviewed that film. I reviewed this now, Child's Play remake back in 2019, as it's so bad in so many levels, and I know this came first, but this is so bad in so many levels, and this is the strongest non-recommendation for this movie, as this feels so damn cheap for a straight-to-video sequel, as some of the characters deserve to die, as this isn't effective. And I can't believe this movie came out as this is by far the worst. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with the 2021 TV miniseries of I Know What You Did Last Summer. And until then, what are you waiting for? Whoops.